Okay, this is a video demo of Linux containers, and this was part of my presentation that I did at UKG in 2013. And my laptop had one or two issues during that presentation, so I thought I'd try and reproduce it with a video demo. Okay, so let's say we're going to look at Linux containers, and a Linux container is basically a bunch of files, and I already have a container created called cont1, and if we look at the directory cont1 in the /container directory, we see there's just a couple of files and a rootfs directory. So if we go down into that directory, we can have a look at the config, and this basically tells us various properties of the container. And we can see the networking, we can see the name, we can see where its root file system is, where its fs tab is, and we can see a bunch of control group devices that allows us to control the resources available to this container. And if we look at the root file system, we can see that it's just what you typically expect in a root file system. And it's essentially the same as the root file system we have in our host. Okay, so I'm going to start the container, and I'm going to start it with the -d option, which is going to put it in the background. And so if let me think. If we do the -console, we can connect to our container and we can log in to the actual container, and that's what's running inside our container. You can see we're running SSHD in the container, and we have an IP address. So one way of accessing our container from the host would be to SSH to that IP address. And if we look on the host now with ps-forest, we can see that a whole bunch of processes that are the child of the lxc-start command that we ran, and we can see that this has got an init process, and there's a whole bunch of stuff including the SSHD process that's a child of the init process. Okay, what else can we do? We can have a look at the running. We can have a look at what containers we have on this system, and currently we just have the one. We can get some info about that container, and it tells us the PID is 6750, and if we look back here, 6750 is the process ID of the init command. What else can we do? We can freeze a container. So this is in our container, and we can now freeze it, and that command won't be able to be run. So get the name of the container, and it's frozen. Can't run any commands, and if we unfreeze, you can see that we can now run commands again. Yay! So that's pretty groovy. We can clone a container. Now this is where we went horribly wrong in Manchester. So lxc clone, we give the original name of the container. Note the container is actually up and running, and we just give it the name of a new container. So in this case we're cloning from cont1 to cont2. Here we go. It basically copies the full root fs file system. Now if we come back here, we can actually see how big that is. It's 595 meg that it's copying. And it's done. It's actually done it. And if we look back on the host operating system, and we now have cont2 as well as cont1. And we can start that container with the minus cont2. I won't give it the minus d so you can see the console starting up in this window. And it takes a little while to get an IP address. It takes quite a while to get an IP address. Okay, let's move on. While that's going, we are going to set a control group. We are going to control the amount of CPU resources that are available to the container. So CPUs. So that's telling us that basically we've got CPUs 0 to 3 available to this container. And that's all the CPU on our system, because we've got CPUs 0 to 3. So what we're actually going to do is control that with a control group. We do cont1 CPU set.cpus, and we're going to limit it to 0. That's just CPU, or rather thread 0. And we can then check that it's now limited to 0. Have our container started? Yeah, there we go. Our container started that we cloned, and it's actually got a different IP address from the original one. Okay, and we can stop a container quite easily. Cont1, and where are we? We should be over here. Yeah, that has stopped. Sorry, LXC minus stop actually stops it pretty hard, and we can actually destroy a container as well. Oh, running aborted. That didn't work. So, and that's gone now. And we've only got one container again. And if we look in here, just the one container.